Good morning, everyone. So I just wanted to send out a quick YouTube video of support to review some things that maybe is a bit unclear for us. So you know the literature review is due by the end of today, 11:59 p.m. And just to reiterate, the literature review, the purpose of this kind of writing is I'm asking that you review articles related to a specific topic, and you're reviewing these articles because you're trying to prove a thesis statement of your own. And just so that it's clear, it's possible that you start off with a topic. For example, maybe you start off with the topic of gender and violence, right? And you do research on this topic, and from the research, you then develop a thesis statement. So you want to look at gender and violence, you read a bunch of articles, and after reading the articles, you then realize your thesis statement is media representation often causes gender often causes, how about just violence against women, right? And so that happened after I read the articles. It's also possible, though, that you might know what your thesis statement is. That is, you want to look at, you want to say that media representation of women leads to the gender wage gap, right? That's what you want to prove, because that's a thesis that has been sort of swirling around in your mind for a while. And so after you figure this out, you then go out and you look for articles that can help you talk more about this. But in either case, your goal still is to review articles, review research in order to prove your thesis statement. And then the way that you organize the information in your literature review is by looking at some of the overlaps between these articles. So you'll remember I talked to you about overlaps in the form of handshakes, right? So if there's a way in which the articles are talking about things in a similar way, if they're talking about a similar idea, if they're talking about something using a similar tone, or if they're talking about an idea but they have two different positions on the idea, right? So those are called overlaps, and that's how you would organize your information in this literature review. In other words, I'm not so much interested in one paragraph that summarizes one article, one paragraph that summarizes another, etc., because that doesn't really allow for the most important aspect of this assignment, and that is synthesis. So just be mindful of that. And then I just wanted to quickly walk through an example. And this kind of comes from the work that I know Alba Nellis is doing with gun control. So Alba Nellis, I hope you don't mind that I'm using some of your ideas to help us all understand the literature review. So I realized that I want to write a paper about gun control. And so I don't know what my thesis is, but I do know that I'm interested in gun control. So I read a bunch of articles, and after reading 3 articles specifically, I see that there's a focus on the mentally ill, media, and mass shootings. So after thinking about these 3 ideas, after thinking about these 3 articles, I realize I have a thesis statement. And this thesis statement is as follows. Americans believe gun control will be an issue in our country forever. While gun control is a controversial issue, research shows there are 3 particular methods necessary for eradicating gun-related violence. So you'll see that I have a they say, right? Americans, I believe that gun control is something that can be eradicated if we look at these 3 specific things, right? These 3 specific methods that I'm going to be talking about in my lit review. So from here now, I realize that all of the information I give is in an effort to prove this thesis statement. And so here I have an outline of what I might do. This outline, you'll recall, is something that I wanted you to do for the VoiceThread, so that we could hopefully help you figure out if you were on the right track. So here, my first body paragraph, the topic topic sentence might be something like, research emphasizes the likelihood of a mentally ill person committing a mass murder using guns. So my focus here is on what the literature is saying about mentally ill people and their usage of guns, right? And I have some example sentences here only because I also want you to remember APA. So Wines, the last name of the author, 2016, uses testimony from, and then I might indicate what testimony they're using, how it helps support this idea, right? Again, the focus is on the literature. And then another article that I read, on the other hand, Coulter argues the mentally ill are not sold guns. So see how she seems to be saying the opposite of what my topic sentence is, but I'm going to review this article to show that she's wrong and thereby still support my topic sentence. So I say something like, however, she does not cite any evidence to back up this assertion, and then I might continue on to show how Wines does, and therefore the idea that mentally ill folks are able to access guns is the root cause, and that's something that we need to fix. The second body paragraph might start off with, often the media does not take the necessary positions after a mass shooting, instead opting for back and forth arguing amongst pseudo-experts. So the focus here would be on the media and how the media, instead of talking about actual ways that we can change policy, they opt for arguing amongst people who are pro-gun control and who are against gun control. So obviously I would focus on what the research is saying about that, and then maybe even what the research is saying about the consequence of that. And then my third paragraph might focus on mass shootings need to be understood as the norm consequence of lax gun control, not the exception. So another thing that I might find that the research is showing is that we can't think of mass shootings as just this aberration, this another word might be like a surprise, a shock, right? Something that is out of the usual. Instead, we need to see this as a usual thing that will happen until gun control policies are put into place. And so again, what the research is saying about that, the importance of talking about mass shootings as the norm, what might that do for gun control and gun control policies. I'm hoping this like very speedy discussion is going to help you as you work on your final drafts of the lit review. I can't say that I'm going to be able to look at any drafts at this point because it is due by the end of tonight. However, I do think that if you can just keep this video on in the front of your mind as you're writing, you'll be in very good shape to submit something that is a quality lit review.